What's going on, everybody? Welcome to TruthAddiction. This is the channel that deals with the disease of addiction and all the ways it manifests itself. And there's a lot of them. I am a recovering addict. My name is Brian. I suffer from a disease which is incurable, progressive, and sometimes fatal. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible. Welcome to the channel. You know, if you been watching, as you can see, I'm in the middle. There's no fish behind me, and I have no guests. Because on today's episode, what I would like to do is, my channel has been growing a little bit here, right? I remember my first 3 weeks, it was like 20 something subscribers, wasn't getting that many views, and now the last time I checked, I think I'm at like 292 subscribers. The videos are getting about 100 to 200 views. So my goal was to carry the message of recovery, and that's happening, Not to mention, which is kind of cool, when you start a YouTube channel, your YouTube studio will give you some analytics, and it actually lets you know if you have viewers in different countries and even the cities. It tells you the geological graphics. So, I don't got a lot, but when I first started, there was none. And now it's like showing viewers in, Canada, Europe. I got some in Bangladesh, which is crazy, and it also shows you the cities across the United States. And at first, it'd be like one viewer in New York. And now it's grown to where it's showing me like 20 different cities, where there's like a viewer or two, California, Los Angeles, Chicago, things like that. And I think that's pretty cool. Because here I am on the outskirts of Philadelphia, and the message is touching people from around, man. And I like that. So what I thought I would do today is I would like to try to connect with my audience as it grows. And I was thinking I've yet to tell you who I am and a little bit about myself. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I just want to talk a little bit about my early childhood, my active addiction, and then, lead it up into recovery and let you know what I've learned. And maybe somebody out there that can relate. I remember when I first came into my particular 12-step program, it wasn't until I heard somebody else say my story and say things that had to do with my childhood and coming up to where I was like, oh, okay, I'm in the right place. You know what I mean? Either this dude was following me around all my life, which is probably not what happened, or I'm not special, I'm not unique, and there's other people out there just like me. And for me, that's what 12-step recovery has that nowhere else offers. And that is the empathy. That is the I am you and you are me. No matter how we got here, we got here. The underlying causes of how we got here are the same. And I've learned along the way to pick out the similarities and leave the differences. And, that's how I stay clean. So, I guess I'll start off by this. And before I get into that, man, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. Help me carry the message, So anyway, I was born in 1975. It was a cold, dark, rainy night in North Philadelphia, and your boy popped out of a vagina about 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I didn't even pop out of a vagina. I think I was a C-section. But anyway, that's probably too much information. But I was actually born in a hospital in North Philadelphia. If y'all haven't seen those videos, because I'm sure most of the world has already, those like zombie-looking people. It looks like a third world country in North Philadelphia. Everybody's high as shit, doing this type of shit. And like, fuck yeah. Yeah, I was born right there, man. And I would go back to visit that place as a teenager and be just like those people, believe it or not. But anyway, so I was born to a single mother, who I now know was an addict, and I'll get into that. So, my childhood was fucked up, man. It wasn't your quote cookie cutter normal childhood. I can remember at an early age, man, just seeing a lot of, my house always smelled like weed. I seen a lot of people all fucked up, distorted, and during my early childhood, I really didn't know what that was. I just figured like these people were just fucking goofy, you know what I mean? And, but as I grew up and I got to around like 10, 11 years old, I really started to understand what the hell was going on. I had a sister who's 4 years younger than me. Well, I didn't had a sister. I still have a sister. We don't really talk that much, and that'll come a little later in the story because that was due to my active addiction. And I remember being 11, 12 years old, and my mom just being so whacked out, man. A lot of like Sambuca and Xanax and fucking, what was that shit? Vicodin and shit was being taken. My mom was the neighborhood weed dealer, and there was just a lot of action going on in my house, man. You know what I mean? I can remember walking in my house with my first little girlfriend when I was like 12, 13. And, I used my key to come in the door, and I came in, and there was like my mom sitting at the table with like three dudes. And the one dude pulls out a gun, and he's like pointing it at me at the door because apparently they was in the middle of a big ass weed deal. Because like I could see there was like stacks of fucking bricks of marijuana on the table. But yeah, so needless to say, I didn't have that girlfriend much longer, But that was a little weird, I must say. And, so things just progressed, and I was like kind of like this anti-drug kid, like I seen what was happening, and I didn't like it. I remember at an early age, 13, 14 years old, thinking, how most of us when we're like that age, we think about, when I grow up, I want to be, a doctor or a lawyer. I want to, big house and all this crazy shit, right? I remember at 14 thinking, when I grow up, I want to help kids that have parents who are addicts, that are on drugs. I didn't say addicts then, but parents who are on drugs. Like, that's when I was 14. Right? So, it's weird because you'll hear things like, no kid ever says, when I grow up, I want to be a heroin addict or a crackhead. You know what I mean? And the crazy part is, I actually said when I was younger, I want to grow up and help people not do drugs and specifically help kids that have parents who are on drugs. And I had this big grandiose plan. Like I was going to buy this giant complex where they can come and stay when shit got rough in their house. This is the mind of a 14-year-old that I was thinking this. So, in a way, I kind of did say to myself when I grow up, I want to, be a fucking drug addict and be able to help people, I guess. I don't know. I didn't have the part where I became the drug addict first, you know what I mean? But that's what it was. And so eventually, I get to, I'm bad in school because, I don't really give a fuck about school because my mom don't really give a fuck about what's going on in school. You know what I mean? I can remember having to go to a parent-teachers meeting for my sister when I was like 14 or 15, something like that. Because, my mom was just whacked. I would like write the notes, like if my sister was absent and shit, like I would do that once in a while. It was a crazy ass thing. I mean, I remember learning how to cook very early on. Because I would have to, we had to fend for ourselves sometimes, man. When your mom is passed out on some motherfucking Sambuca and Xanax, you better get to living. You know what I mean? I know a rapper who was like, he said a line one day, he goes, I became a man when I realized my dad was broke. right? I became a grown up when I realized my mom was whacked out. And my dad, I had no dad around. My sister didn't have her dad around. Just wacky shit going on. And eventually I got to, so I had to go to summer school, dude, like sixth grade, seventh grade, just to get to high school. And then, like not too long after I started high school, man, I met the boys on the corner in South Philly, and we're hanging out. And then, we would cut school. And then, my like one of like in the first couple weeks of high school, I went and cut school, and I went to this place, and it was like this cheesesteak place. I'm not gonna say no names, but like, somehow I lost my books, and I just never went back to fucking school, bro. And like, my mom didn't even like, it didn't even matter, bro. And so I'm that dude walking around in South Philly hanging out. I played a lot of sports, you know what I mean? I took out my fucking anger and frustrations, and I got joy out of playing sports. And eventually though, man, the alcohol and the pills and all that, it just swept the corners that we would hang on. And I went from being that dude like, hey man, this isn't really good to do. We shouldn't be doing fucking drugs type of shit, to eventually, joining in, man. Getting in where I fit in, dude. And that was the thing even before I started using, was I found myself always feeling not good enough. Always feeling like I had to be somebody else so that I could be part of the crowd. And here's the crazy thing is, usually that crowd I thought I had to be a part of was a fucked up crowd, man. I mean, like, there were some good people, but when you give good people drugs, they turn into bad people. It's just how it goes, you know what I mean? And so anyway, I get up to, in my teenage years, and right around about 19, I discovered heroin. And one of my boys had laid out a line. He said it was dope. Back then, dope was anything. You can call weed dope. I thought it was coke. I thought it was cocaine. And I snorted. And I still remember, he laid out this little ass bitch ass line. It was like fucking 3 centimeters long. And I remember before I snorted it thinking, like, what a greedy motherfucker. You know what I mean? Because I've seen people do coke at that point. And with the coke, them lines was like, I seen people do like that. They used to call them ropes. Put out ropes like that long. And I remember thinking, what a greedy motherfucker. This motherfucker only gave me this little ass line. And I snorted that. And as soon as I started snorting it, he started laughing. He's like, yo, man, that's heroin, man. And I'm like, heroin, motherfucker, what? And about a half hour later, man, I was throwing my fucking guts up, right? But at the same time, it felt so heavenly. I was so fucking high, dude. That's when I first started using heroin. Now, my first use was around 16, and that was with the drug of alcohol and some Xannies and type of shit like that, and weed, But man, when that heroin hit my body, bro, yeah, that was fucking awesome. I ain't gonna lie, man. It felt good as fuck. So, like, I'll just put this out there. If you have yet to try heroin, yeah, don't try it, bro. And you want to know why? Not because it's unhealthy for you or you could die. Because guess what? It's probably going to feel really good and make you think like a lot of your problems are going to go away now. And then the next thing you know, you have a serious fucking habit, bro. And it escalates like a motherfucker from there, dude. So, that happened. Soon after that, my mom had moved out of South Philly into Northeast Philly. And, now I got a habit. So I'm going from couch to couch at friends' house because I refuse to move out of South Philly. I don't want to go to Northeast Philly. And I'm going couch to couch. I'm living off other people and still trying to come up with ways and means to get more. You know what I mean? And, eventually I make my way to Northeast Philly. And that's where I meet a girl and I have a kid. and I have a son. He's like, I think 23 years old now, somewhere around there. And me and his mom were getting fucked up soon after we had the baby. We were both working at the same place, and we were like robbing the fuck out of the place, hundreds of dollars a day. And we had serious habits. There was crack involved. My main thing was dope, you know what I mean? And, eventually, man, it got to where, we had to go to rehab and type shit like that. And I don't know what happened with her at that time. I can't really remember, but I had to go to rehab. And I remember getting out of that rehab. And it was the first one I ever stayed at. I had tried a couple before, and I kept leaving them. I would do like 2-3 days of detox, and then I was like, I can't survive in here. You know what I mean? All that bullshit we tell ourselves. You know what I mean? And so I would leave. But this one rehab, I stayed the whole 30 days, and they kept drilling in my head like, yo, when you get out of here, go to a meeting. Go to what they call a meeting, which is a 12-step program, right? So, and that's what I did. And at the time, her parents were watching our son. And it went to, by the way, if you can't tell, that cycle I was in my childhood, yeah, I continued that cycle. Like a lot of us do, unfortunately. You know what I mean? That trash ass parenting with the drug fueled parenting going on. Yeah, I just stayed in the same cycle, bro. I couldn't break the cycle at that point. But anyway, I get out of that rehab, and I want my son back. But the thing is, like, now, the system's involved a little bit. His grandparents, they're trying to adopt him and all this shit. So I come out, man, and I actually started doing good. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do to get my son back? And then, it was like, well, you gotta find him a school, a doctor. You have to do these things, and we're gonna come visit you whenever the fuck we want at your house. You know what I mean? It would just pop up whenever. And you know what, man? Like, I came out of that rehab, and I went to a meeting, and I stayed in the process, man. And everything got like, I did the things I needed to do to get him back, right? And you know what's crazy is, these are like everyday normal things that regular people do. Take care of their kid, get them a school, get them a doctor and all. But for some reason, for an addict, at least for this addict with this fucking brain, it's all like 10 times harder for whatever reason. And because there's like this thing that happens with the addict brain, and it's why it's a disease. Some of us are different levels, man. We really are, man. Some of us are just on different levels of disorder of the brain. And like all along the time I'm doing these right things, I got a brain that's telling me, bruh, fuck this shit. Let's do some bad shit. That's it. I got a brain, man, that's just always telling me, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And for like the average person out there, they really can't grasp that fucking thing right there. But like, I'm telling you, it's maddening. It is maddening when you want to do the right thing, when you're trying to do the right thing. Every day you wake up, it's like, let's do some good shit today. And then like, you got a fucking brain that wants to kill you, bro. And it wants to destroy everything around you that is good. And it's like, you got to fucking deal with that all the time. So eventually, like, I did it. I did the things I had to do to get my son. And, time went on. His mom got in the picture. And then it was like, now I was just struggling to live, kind of. It was kind of weird. And at that point, I had moved. And I still had my son at this point. And then, like, things just started getting bad. Like, now I'm doing other things besides drugs. I got into gambling really bad, and literally got to the point where I was gambling my rent money and shit. Like, it was all fucked up. So that's when I start out this show and I talk about how the disease manifests itself in all those crazy ass ways. Man, it just does. Like, my brain just doesn't fucking stop. Any little crack it can find, it just invades it and opens it the fuck up, man, and just tries to get me, bro. I didn't fully understand that at the point. Even though I was clean and I was going through a recovery process. You know what I mean? And I look back at that and I don't know if I was fully doing that process. But anyway, I eventually, it didn't even have anything to do with drugs. My son actually started to go live with his grandparents and his mom because it was just a better situation. He could get into a good school. His grandmother worked at the school. You know what I mean? And it was just like, you know what? This is a better situation. I was doing wild shit. I had a bunch of chicks coming in the house all the time. I mean, it just wasn't a fucking proper environment. And dig this, there was no drugs, dude. And it was still fucked up, just in different ways, man. So eventually I stayed clean. I stayed clean for 8 years. I meet a girl, I get married, I have another fucking kid. And soon after that, we started using. She was clean too. She had years clean, and I did too. And we started using, man, and you know how the story goes, bro. You know, I personally, like, if you're out there right now thinking, damn, this dude had 8 years clean and he still got higher, I need to tell you how that happened. See, what what had happened was, I stopped doing the things I was doing to stay clean, right? And I stopped working on myself because eventually, like, I did get better with the gambling and everything as I went through that 12-step process. And I went through my step work, and I got me a sponsor and a home group, right? And I got them understanding. Now, I will say this, the first time I was clean, I was using somebody else's God. And I look back at that now, and I think that was an issue. But anyway, what had happened was I stopped doing those things. So don't sit out there and be all feared up about, man, if you're sitting there with like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days clean or something, man, and thinking, what chance do I have if I can do like this, can get 8 years and still use? I just need you to understand that I walked away from what was working. I let it go. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped answering the phone. I had no more network happening. And you know, I look back at it now, and one of the first things I stopped doing was praying. I stopped praying, dude, and meditating and talking to the higher power. That was one of the first things that went. So eventually I used. It took me about a year to actually put a drug in my body. But, you know, so I was clean for 8 years in my 12-step program. And then I got married and all that shit. And I went another year and a half, almost a year and a half without putting a drug in my body. But eventually I used, bro. All the defense systems were down. And my mind, my brain, my diseased brain, it took hold. There was no more defense. And I used. And then it just got wicked bad, dude. This was like no other relapse, man. I'm telling you. You know, I've tried had little increments of time and fucking relapse. But this, when you have that kind of time put in and you know what's going on with your brain, you know about the disease of addiction, and you go out and use, bro, it is hard to come back. That guilt and shame is unreal, bro. Especially on my way out, all the people saying, hey, man, you know, I don't see you in meetings anymore, man. You might use. So what you mean I might use? You don't fucking. Dude, listen, everybody doesn't need to go to a 12-step program to stay clean. That was what I used to say, man. And I used to tell people how they were wrong. Like, I'm not going to use, dude. I already know what's up. You know, I learned enough, man. I learned enough about my disease, man. You know? And, dude, I used. Eventually, it got me. And I went on this. I had another kid. I went on this vicious 4 or 5 year run, bro. And it was terrible. I ended up losing those kids to the state. Me and their mom was ripping near the end. I think she was like fucking 3 different dudes. One of them might have been a drug dealer. And you know what? I really didn't even care because like she would bring shit home. It was violent, bro. It was bad. I remember they showed up at my house like on a Saturday night and they was like, yo, we're taking these fucking kids because your house is trash. You don't even fucking have hot water right or whatever it was. I had extension cords running from my fucking neighbor's house. And I always like to share that because it keeps it green for me, you know? And You know, they took my kids. And I remember being so angry because I looked at it like only people who abuse their kids get their kids taken. You know, like punching them in the face and all this shit. But really what I didn't understand at the time was like the mental shit that was happening. You know, what I was doing to the insides of me and my children, you know, letting them see this kind of whack ass lifestyle. And that was the thing. And then eventually, you know, the state was going to take, my sister stepped in. And, you know, I'll always be grateful to her. I don't talk to her that much. I don't talk to her at all, to be honest with you anymore. My kids are older. It's kind of like, I think the last kind of contact I had with them, I was told, like, you know, if they want to call you, they'll call you. You know, they got your number. But, you know, things just went that way, man. And eventually I got clean again. I went into a crisis center, man. And I went and I sat in a fucking detox and rehab. And I went to a halfway house and then a recovery house. And then eventually a sober house. And I found my way back into the rooms of my program. And so I don't really want to make this video go too much longer. So I found myself back into a program. And I knew in rehab when they were trying to give me maintenance program. You know, that good old maintenance program they try to throw at you nowadays. I couldn't believe how things have changed at that point. See, when I first got clean, methadone and Suboxone was used to just get you through your withdrawal for 5 days. Now, I'm in there now. There was dudes coming in that were in prison for the last 7 months that haven't even been on drugs, right? But they still had to go through this process of this rehab. And they're trying to put these dudes on maintenance. And they hadn't even did drugs in 7 months. It was fucking crazy. I realized how much they're pushing that shit, right? It used to be as a withdrawal kind of thing to get you comfortably through your withdrawal. Now those medications, Suboxone and methadone, maybe even Vivitrol, they're being sold as death prevention. We will prevent you from OD and prevention of the spreading of diseases. You know, because society's tired of us fucking shooting up and getting fucking certain diseases and spreading them around, man. And they're tired of us filling their morgues up. You know what I mean? And they found a way to make some serious motherfucking money. We get people paid, bro. Paid. $700 billion. Detoxes, rehabs, sober houses, recovery houses, fucking counselors, Suboxone, methadone. Bro, let me tell you something. I remember at one point I had a Suboxone doctor right before I got clean. And that shit, you talk about legal drug dealing, bro. Holy shit. Like 90, you know how usually you go to the doctor, right? And the doctor will tell you what you need. Like, oh, my back hurts, doc. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to prescribe you 20 of these and 10 of these and take them 4 times a day. You know what I mean? Well, and the Suboxone doctor, bro, was like, how much money do you got? How many do you want? Like, I can give you 30, 60, or 90. 30's 100, 60's 150, 90's 2 something, whatever it was. And I thought that was so fucking wild, bro. And you paid cash for that. So they would charge your state insurance, which we all pay for, right? And charge you cash. And here's the great part about it. A script of 90 Suboxones, it's cost in the thousands. But for somebody like me at the time with state insurance, it cost me $2. The copay was $2. So all I'm saying is this. If we want to stop, which I consider to be madness, the madness of, and I just went on a rabbit hole, a little chair. I know I did just now, but there's some things that fucking irk me. And one of the things that irks me is how these motherfuckers are getting paid from our misery, bro. Our misery and death toll of over 100,000 motherfuckers a year gets people paid. You're home eating ramen noodles, and this motherfucker's going home tonight, and he's going to eat a motherfucking filet mignon, bro. Straight up, in his big ass mansion. That's how it goes. So my thing was, I believe that if the fucking government would stop funding this shit, all of a sudden motherfuckers wouldn't need it. All the addicts out there I need this to survive. Or their parents, my son and daughter's been doing great since they've been on this. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, bro, you asked an addict if he wants a drug. And of course that motherfucker said yes. Let us replace your drug with our drug because it's just better. You know what I mean? Anyway, I just went off right there. But that's a whole nother thing. I don't need no fucking comments, man. Don't send me no hate comments about how you've been doing so well on Suboxone and methadone. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. I don't need to hear it. It's just a personal opinion, man. At the end of the day, you do what you want to do. It's your fucking life. You know what I mean? Everybody's got opinions. They're like assholes. Everybody has one. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, I come back. And I get me a sponsor, and I find a great dude, right? And this dude, and I've been clean for a little over 6.5 years, right? And I met a great dude, man. And he started showing me about, like, what it was to be a fucking man, like, and go through this step process, man. You know what I mean? I realized that, I entered a 12-step program. I guess I must do the 12 steps and do it the way they're telling me to do it in order for it to work. You know what I'm saying? So I have done that. And I went through this process. And this time, the God of my understanding was the actual God of my understanding, right? And I'm not a religious person, but, that doesn't need to be a thing, right? It's about just having a power greater than yourselves. And for me, it is the rooms of my program as a whole. I don't make individuals my God, but as a whole, that is a power. There is a power in the rooms of a 12-step recovery program. Whatever one you want to go into, bro. Right? You can't stop shopping your fucking whole existence away on Amazon or whatever the fuck it is. You can find yourself a 12-step program that deals with that. And you will go around other motherfuckers that can't stop shopping. And through that, you will heal. And so on and so on and so on. So, here's the deal. I've been clean a little over 6.5 years. I have been through all my steps with my sponsor. I have a home group that I maintain. And I have a little circle of network of people around me who are clean and who are not using and who have found a new way to live. And I incorporate that shit. You know what I mean? And let me just say what I've learned along the way. Because I sit here 48 years old, And what I've learned is this. That just for today's shit that most programs go around talking about, just for today. It becomes such a cliche, you don't even pay attention to it anymore. But here's what I learned, man. I have a disease of the brain. And this disease needs to be treated. And if I don't do something to treat it every day, eventually it will get me. So through that relapse and that wicked ass run I had, and I sit here today and I truly understand now what it means, what just for today means. Basically, I'm on a daily reprieve, and a daily reprieve requires a daily effort. You know what I'm saying? And I've done a lot of internal work on myself, dude. And what I've learned is that I do have a disease. And I've learned that it has changed my fucking brain. And those changes that were made in my brain is going to take a long fucking time. If it ever even snaps back into place, which it can, the brain can heal itself. But if it was to, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long ass time, bro. It ain't going to, I'm 6.5, well, a little over 6 years clean. That ain't shit, bro. You understand? Like, I walked into the middle of a forest about 100 miles in. I can't expect to walk back out in 5. That just ain't how it goes. So I'm going to wrap this up. And the reason that I do this channel and the reason I just wanted to share that story with you, and I'm sure there's some shit I missed, but the reason I wanted to do that was because there could be somebody that tunes into this channel and is on the fence about getting clean. Or maybe you just got clean. Maybe you got 6 months. Maybe you're at that point where you're thinking to yourself, wow, man, I haven't thought about using in a while, man. At that point, somewhere between 6 months and a year, you start to suggest control to yourself again for whatever fucking reason. Well, I mean, not for whatever reason, it's because we have a fucking disease. And a lot of us, we use again. That's a big time. It's a moment in time for an addict when they're 6 months to a year clean. So maybe those people are watching. I just need you to understand that you do have a disease. You have a disease, and like any other disease, it needs to be treated. The way I treat myself and the way I treat my disease, and which I think, for me personally, is not only the best way, but, and I'm going to say it, the only way for an addict with the disease of addiction to not only get clean, but to sustain the clean, to stay clean. To stay clean, you need what we call a wordless language of recognition, which is empathy. Empathy. You need that healing. In other words, nobody knows another alcoholic or addict or bad shopper or somebody addicted to sex and love like another motherfucker who is addicted to those things. And through the empathy and the steps in your program is where you find healing. And it's where you're able to recover. So with that said, I'm going to shut the fuck up now. So, I thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of it. I hope we're a little bit closer now. You know what I mean? And I'm going to end with my awesome catchphrase. Is it a catchphrase if you end with it? I don't know. But anyway, shout out to my man Sam, who once said this to me in a meeting. It was a little different, but he said this. The disease of addiction is broad and outside of the realm of just using drugs. Keep coming back. More will be revealed. I'm out of here.